I'm a shark in a pond. That's what Asaf told me on our call last week. He owns 100 properties in Albany. He's been renting to college students for 25 years. He runs construction, maintenance, property management, acquisitions. His wife runs 25 Airbnbs, and he reps college and high school basketball on the side. And he said, I'm a shark in a pond. And I'm guessing you know exactly what he means. You're dominating your local market. You're the go-to person in your city, your niche, your industry. But you look at the bigger players, the national names, the people with $7 billion in real estate and 150 employees, and you think, maybe I'm not enough. But here's the thing, that's not your problem. That's your $2 bill. And today, I'm going to show you why being the shark in the pond is exactly where you want to be. But before we dive in, I want to let you know, if you stick around to the end at this video, I'm going to give you something really special. It's a free tool that will help you discover your only statement in under 8 minutes. You're going to answer 8 questions, and you'll discover what makes you unforgettable in your market. Plus, I'm going to show you how to book a free 15-minute call with me, and where you'll get a complete deliverable with your only statement, personalized action items, and more. Spots are filling fast. That's not a false pitch. It's true. So make sure you watch until the end. So last week, we talked about the O in the O.N.L.Y framework. Own your difference. The first letter in the framework. And today, we're going to talk about the second letter, N. Narrow your focus. Because here's what happens to most entrepreneurs. You start to grow, you start to succeed, and then you look around and you see people who are bigger, who have more, who are doing it at a national or global scale. And you think, maybe I should expand. Maybe I should go to New York City. Maybe I should compete in the ocean. But that's a trap. For 22 years in Hollywood, I worked on shows like 60 Days In, Intervention, and Accused, Guilty, or Innocent. And you know what made those shows successful? They didn't try to be everything to everyone. They narrowed their focus. 60 Days In wasn't a show for everyone, but it was a show for people who wanted to see what really happens inside a jail. Intervention wasn't a show for everyone, but it was a show for people who cared about addiction and recovery. That's the power of narrowing your focus. You don't need to be the biggest. You just need to be the only in your pond. So let me tell you about Asaf. He owns 100 properties in Albany, New York. He's been renting to college students for 25 years, and he knows how to turn a 5-bedroom house into 5 $500 a month rooms that students actually want to live in. And he's crushing it. But here's what he told me on the call. He said, hey, Brad, I went to New York City and met with a college buddy of mine who's a huge New York City landlord. I walk into his office on Park Avenue and 30th Street in Manhattan. He's got 150 people working for him, young professional people. They probably make $150,000 to $250,000 a year minimum. And Asaf said, I thought he had like $1 billion in real estate. He's got like 7 billion. And then Asaf said this, my doing well is small compared to him doing well. I'm a shark in a pond, whereas in New York City, you could be a shark, but you're a shark in an ocean. If you're in the pond, you're the king of the world. You can eat whatever you want. But when you're in the ocean, just because you're a shark, there's a million other sharks out there. And then he said, when I'm in Albany, I feel like a shark. Like I'm the man. When I go to New York City, I feel like a little peon. And I stopped him right there. I said, Asaf, do you want to be a New York City shark in the ocean? Or do you like being the shark in the pond? And he paused. And then he said, I don't know. I think I like being the shark in the pond, but I feel like I should want to be in the ocean. That's the trap right there. You feel like you should want to be bigger. You feel like you should want to expand. You feel like you should want to compete at a national level. But here's the truth. Being the shark in the pond is the $2 bill. See, in the ocean, you're competing with a million other sharks. You're fighting for scraps. You're trying to survive, but in the pond, you're the king. You set the rules. You own the market. You're the only. And that's exactly where Asaf is. He's the only real estate in Albany who's been renting to college students for 25 years. He owns 100 properties and knows how to turn a 5-bedroom house into $500 a month rooms. Nobody can compete with that. And this is the second letter in the O.N.L.Y framework. Narrow your focus. Most people think they need to expand to grow, but the opposite is true. The more you narrow your focus, the more powerful you become. Asaf doesn't need to go to New York City. He doesn't need to compete with the $7 billion landlord. He just needs to own Albany. You don't need to go to national. You don't need to compete with the big players. You just need to own your pond. So here's the question I want you to ask yourself. What's your pond? Is it a geographic market, like Asaf and Albany? Is it a specific niche, like student housing? Is it a specific type of client, like middle-class college students? Because when you narrow your focus, you stop competing and you start dominating. That's the second step in becoming the only. And here's what I told Asaf on the call. Do not chase the best. There will always be somebody better. There will always be somebody bigger. There will always be somebody with more zeros. But what are the other things you value so highly? That's where the only will give you. You make more impact being the only. And that's what I want you to understand today. You don't need to be the biggest. You don't need to be the best. You just need to be the only in your pond. Specific is unforgettable. General is invisible. Specific is unforgettable. General is invisible. When you try to be everything to everyone, you become important to no one. But when you narrow your focus, when you own your pond, you become the king. You set the rules. You own the market. You're the only. You're the $2 bill. Last week, we talked about own your difference, the first letter in the O.N.L.Y framework. And today, we talked about narrow the focus, the second letter. And here's how they work together. First, you own what makes you different. That's the O. Then you narrow your focus to a specific pond. That's the end. Asaf owns his difference, Israeli aggressiveness, New York directness, thorny in the outside, soft in the inside, and he narrows his focus, student housing in Albany. And what's the result? He's the only real estate investor in Albany who owns 100 properties, and he's been renting to college students for 25 years. That's the $2 bill. So here's what I want you to do now. Remember that tease at the beginning that I told you? Go to findyouronly.app. That's findyouronly.app. Go there. You're going to answer 8 questions. It takes under 8 minutes. And you will get your O.N.L.Y statement emailed to you and comes up on the screen. Then you get to book a free 15-minute call with me. I said free. And here's what you're going to get on that call. It's not just 15 minutes of conversation, although I love that. You get a complete deliverable with your O.N.L.Y statement, personalized action items, and more. We're going to refine your O.N.L.Y statement together. We're going to figure out your pond, and we're going to make sure you're positioned as the only, not the best. Spots are filling up fast. I am booked solid, but get on my calendar. I've done over 30 of these calls in the last 2 weeks, and people are saying things like this. You definitely have a gift. You've got my mind running in a very creative direction. You really opened my eyes to pushing myself out of my comfort zone. You have pushed me a level ahead. That was very enlightening on many things that I hadn't thought about. That's from a real estate investor, somebody that owns a professional services company, and also somebody who's in food and beverage. So don't wait. Do not wait. Go to findyouronly.app right now. Discover your O.N.L.Y statement, book your call, and let's figure out your pond. Because you don't need to be the biggest. You just need to be the only. Be the only. Be the $2 bill.